servant leadership. And servant leadership is, where people come into office, and you come into office and you want to be honest. The first thing that you bring to the table is integrity. Integrity, my integrity is beyond reproach. I'm coming here with clean hands. Well, a politician coming with clean hands, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but let's just say, that's the ideal.
Yep.
But as we come together as a group of people and we say we are selling an agenda to you as a people, and we sell that agenda and you buy that agenda and you elect us into office,
right,
we then start implementing that agenda with the high trust that you've bestowed upon us as your leaders to go this journey together. What have we been seeing in this country? Let's take the example of what we've seen in the last couple of years. 2022, September, up to now is what? 2.5 years, 2 years and plus. What have we seen? We saw the Kenya Kwanza Brigade go out and campaign, and people voted for this one presidential ticket that had 2 names, right. William Samoei Ruto, Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua. And the 2 went to Kasarani and were sworn into office, and they took oath of office to serve the people of Kenya, to protect the constitution and to live with integrity, because constitution says integrity, okay? When they are doing their work and they start getting feedback from the people, inside they're having their conversations. Are we listening to the people? Are we not? Are we serving the people? Are we not? I want to take us into 2023, when the first finance bill of the Kenya Kwanza administration and the first budget was being proposed. And the Kenya Kwanza administration came in and said, we have got a housing agenda and we want to introduce a housing levy. And there was a whole conversation. Is it a levy? Is it a tax? Is it a contribution? Is it, a deposit into owning a house? There was a whole conversation around it. And Kenyans were like, we are not buying into this. And the administration said, no, this is the best thing for Kenya, right? And it passed and it went through. Kenyans went to court, blocked it, said it was not done the right way, courts did whatever. What did we hear from the government? One united voice saying this is the best thing for this country. And many other issues that we saw, people feeling we elected you and we wanted to see hustlers, being considered. We wanted to see money going to the people. We wanted to see a fight of corruption. We wanted to see an absolute sense that this administration is not lavishly spending, is not wasting our money, it is serving the people. And people had the frustration that it's not. Last year, April, bubbling. May, bubbling. June. Oof. Lipukas. And the people, led by you guys, come out and say, no, there's a way, this is not weighing, okay?
Right.
And the people spoke. And that's when we started seeing, leaders starting to come out to, take a side and all. I want to take Rigathi Gachagua, the deputy president.
Okay.
Rigathi Gachagua, the deputy president, addressed a press conference for the first time talking about the issues that were being raised by the population of this country, led by the Gen Z. And he had a press conference in Mombasa soon after the president had also spoken from Nairobi. And he said, you know what, the things that have happened in this country are just exposing, leakages and problems with our security, this and the other. And he went back and continued to serve as deputy president. Thereafter, he was fired. Let's just call it what it is. He was fired from office via impeachment, and now he is on the other side.
Has not stopped
since
talking
going
since,
to the other side, there are things that Rigathi Gachagua has now been saying from this side and talking about that administration that I left and how rotten it is and how much corruption there is and how tone deaf they are and how inconsistent they are in implementation of what we agreed that we're going to do. And he has been saying that, that thing is wrong. It's the worst thing since the first volcano.
Right.
And I ask myself, are we saying that Rigathi Gachagua, now because he doesn't have the job of Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, which he lost not because he wanted to exit office, but because he was pushed out, now is when he has seen that this system is rotten? Now we are saying that Rigathi Gachagua is the high priest of good governance in this country? Oh, come on. Miss me with that.
Mike, drop.
Imekutoka.
Umesema imekutoka.
Kuna ingine imebaki.
Valid point. Sorry, Mariam, you want to go ahead?
No, I couldn't agree more. There's a long history. As long as this country has existed, there has been double speak from the political class. But I think over the last maybe 10 years, it's just gotten to ridiculous points where at some point you don't even believe that someone could come and say 1 + 1 is 2 today, and tomorrow they say 1 + 1 is blue. I don't understand.
You've said something very pertinent, is that it dates way back.
Right.
I think, and feel free to step in, both of you, if I'm not getting some of these things accurately. But I get the sense that this is as far back as when Jomo Kenyatta came into power as the first president of independent Kenya, even with Jaramogi, right? So initially starting as this duo of change and prosperity. But shortly after, what happened? Didn't we see similarities of what we're seeing now? There was fallouts.
True.
There was the initial, we're standing together, a falling out, and then the double speak begins.
Right.
And it has gone on. I think if you think about Raila and Kibaki and everybody who has been deputy, prime minister, president, actually it's usually at the highest office. The double speak is usually at the highest office, and it usually is that because it's about power. It's about not serving the people of Kenya. It's about vested interests. So it isn't new. It isn't new. The double speak isn't new. It has historical context, and that's where the problem is. So we have, like I'm saying, we can go as far back. You'd think they're convicted in their principles, but they're not. And remember that if you feel like where you're serving isn't serving you, you remember you can resign.
Yes.
You can say, I don't agree with my principle anymore. I feel like we've gotten to a point where we're not on the same page with the policies, we're not on the same page with the people of this country, and therefore I want to step down. But that doesn't happen because, again, over the decades, I think, I don't want to throw this at Kenyans because we've gone through enough. I'm not going to blame us anymore. But there's been an allowance of it, right? The double speak has continued. I'm talking about 50 plus 60 years of double speak in the highest offices, except the part when there was solid dictatorship for 24 years and it wasn't really entertained. But because we're talking about this so-called high priest of governance, you're seeing a shift. You're seeing a shift into somebody being looked at as a hero when we're not interrogating the double speak of where they've come from.
Yes.
That is what is dangerous. For me, that's the pattern I'm more concerned about. I feel like we just always want a hero. And then we get the Hustler Nation thing was sold. It was like a utopia. I think the president was selling utopia.
It was.
It
sounded
was just, I almost started imitating Trump, which is wild. I was going to say, we're going to create all these jobs.
Right.
But yes, it was, we're going to create a country that's going to work for all of you, especially for those of you who've been furthest left behind. And then comes into power, I think pushes out a lot of lies, doesn't follow through with implementation, has a deputy who's there the whole time, who could easily have said, boss, listen, I think we're going to need to go back to the drawing board. But at the end of the day, you're enjoying the privilege that comes with it. That's where your priorities are. Your priorities are, where do I gain? What do I gain from this? And now, I think where we are is they're so entangled with each other that I don't know who's going to emerge as a hero or as somebody who stands for accountability.
Right.
We've seen the likes of people like Onyonka being bold enough to push back publicly, but they're intertwined like this. And I think you've been in bed with each other so much. You owe me, then I owe you. I made you MP, remember? Right. I got you through. So when you go in there, just remember who got you there. And now, 2025, I think we are so intertwined with the double speak. You know how you look at a puzzle and you're trying to untangle it? There's a tangle, but the tangle also means that people's lives, the lives of Kenyans, are part of that entanglement. That is my biggest problem with doublespeak.
We are so mixed up in it, and I completely agree with you. I mean, we are so mixed up in it, and we are giving the example of Rigathi Gachagua because it's in the headlines. I mean, he's getting 1 hour, 2 hour interviews, and he's getting headlines across, and he has served at that very high office, and is what he was doing as deputy president or not doing, and the things that he was saying or not saying as deputy president, and then there are things that he is saying or not saying now as former deputy president. For example, when he was deputy president in 2023, and the Azimio Brigade was out there saying, you know what, we have things that we need to be sorted out, you know, bei ya unga, fungua sava, and the Azimio protests were taking place. This is what Rigathi Gachagua said at that time, and we're going to play it shortly. Ruto, Raila, and the Azimio demos, and the Azimio, and what he was saying about Raila Odinga at that point, and what ought to happen. Just so let me know when you're ready with that clip, so then we can put it up. Here it is. Let's watch it.
We ask our spiritual leaders to do the right thing. Call Raila Odinga and tell him to stop destruction of property, looting of goods in Nairobi, and destroying our economy. Call Raila Odinga and pray for him so that God can touch his heart to move away from the spirit of destruction and impunity.
Okay. So this was then when the Azimio protests were taking place.
Yeah.
And this is the deputy president responding and saying, you know what, this is a spirit of destruction and it ought to be dealt with, this and the other. And then after June last year, the deputy president is so supportive of people pouring out into the streets to express themselves.
Right.
And when there are actions taken by the administration that he served, this is what he said, Gen Z, about the Gen Z protest and the killing of Gen Zs. Jackson is going to play that clip.
No parent should have to bury their child, especially in such circumstances. I cry for our children. I am unable to bear the pain. My children, Kevin and Keith, are of the same Generation Z. I want to put myself in the shoes of parents who have lost their young children and appreciate the pain, the anguish, the torment. Innocent young children whose only crime was to air their views in a democratic country.
And the Oscar for Best Performance goes to...
Gachagua. This one, he spoke at the coast, and this is at the height of the Gen Z protests,
Right.
where it was clear from within and from without that he had fallen out of favor with his erstwhile colleagues in government. Here he was distancing himself from the administration. What I was actually expecting at the end of that speech was him saying, because I have talked to my brother, the president, not once, not twice, because I've listened to what the president has addressed the nation a few hours ago, because it was just after the president had addressed the nation. I feel that I cannot be part of this administration anymore. And fellow Kenyans, it's with a heavy heart that I come back to you to tell you the trust that you bestowed on me by electing me as your deputy president has been broken. I will no longer continue serving. You know?
Right.
Live. But he stayed on.
And fought till the very end.
Until he was
right?
impolitely asked to leave.
To leave.
It was, you know.
Where's the integrity of
Where's
that?
the integrity? I want to mention something. I'm going to try to figure out how to summarize this and say it within the context of wisdom.
Yeah. Within the context of wisdom. Okay.
Is using the name of God. Listen, this conversation we're having, the three of us and all our fixers, is not a unique conversation. It's not a conversation we should be afraid to have. It also doesn't necessarily shine light and poke holes at individuals. I think more than anything, it poke holes at the system, right? And then there's individuals who are the face of that system. I want to say this because I think it's a very harmful narrative. I'm not going to stand here as Janet, the high priest of Christianity. Not at all. From what I am learning about faith is that you cannot weaponize it. And you can't use it and abuse it when it suits you. If the majority of the country, on paper, are faith-based, on paper, it means there's something very dangerous about saying, I am chosen, therefore I can do whatever I'm doing. This is God's plan. Hey, don't come for me.
Right.
He chose me. You have to take accountability. And somebody once said something very profound. They said, there's a lot of people who are now jaded by faith. There's a lot of people who are jaded. Some have strengthened their relationship with God because of everything that's happening. That's kind of a revival that's happening. Others, some of my friends were like, Siendi church tena, I can't. I'm so jaded because why would they front that?
Right.
And somebody said, sometimes they speak a language, it sounds like a foreign language to the circumstance of Kenyans.
Right.
When you're saying, I'm favored, I'm blessed, I'm wealthy, look at how much I own, God loves me, he's my chosen. I'm not saying God doesn't, God loves everyone, you're God's children. I'm saying, please don't do that in a way that you think you're getting away with what it is that you're doing as an excuse to get away with corruption,
Right.
to get away with gaslighting, to get away with making enemies. It's not. You are actually being hypocritical.
Right.
And like I said, I'll find better English, Latiff and Mariam, to break this down, because it's also a conversation I have in my home. As I strengthen my own relationship and my faith, there's a lot of questions I've been asking and dissecting, and I'm saying, don't do that. Don't use the name of
Thou
God.
shalt not use the name of the Lord in vain.
right?
Don't do it. And I'm not saying it we're all sinners. I'm not saying it to be like high priestess.
Right.
I'm just saying don't do it when you're holding that position.
Right.
It's
You're a
very
deacon.
dangerous.
It's like, I
Janet, you're a
come
deacon.
here and...
Janet, you're a?
Deacon Janet, yeah.
You're
It's
a
like
Sasa.
coming on here and being like, you know, anything that I say, you must take seriously because I have been chosen to sit
And don't
on
question
this
it.
table. And don't question, don't poke holes, don't do anything into it. We're getting into a break, but when we come back, there's also like a lengthy, we'll only touch on a few, a lengthy history of double speak from our government.
Yeah.
How does it then lead to Rigathi Gachagua feeling this confident to say this? How does it lead to the president being able to have double speak and no consequences, right? We'll go through that thread of history. But for now, hashtag remains, of course, Fixing the Nation and TV. You can send us, of course, your videos for WhatsApp Nation 0112 500 400. We'll be right back.
We're having a conversation about, the political hygiene in our country. The political hygiene in our country, when leaders come up and say one thing today and tomorrow, as if yesterday does not matter, come and say a completely different thing. And we are also seeing feedback coming in. Let's take a look at this one on Facebook. This is John Kagwanja. John Kagwanja is saying, Rigathi is a politician and he'll defend the side he's on. I like what he's doing currently, especially to WSR.
We forget though
And he laughs.
Where?
that's what we're convinced.
Right.
This is what we're trying to interrogate. You like it now, it serves you now, but how can you? This is the same person who was previously in the same administration. In the moment, it feels good because a lot of people are on the side of saying,
like he's serving your
nail
purpose.
him,
Yeah.
Right.
serve him, show him. So what's going to happen in 2 years? Guess what? That could change.
That's exactly what happened
That could
with
change.
President William Ruto, part of the former administration.
There you go.
He leaves, they have a fallout. He's very vocal about what's happening in government, quote unquote, the same government that you are part of. And people vote for him because they're like, that's our hustler. No, he was right there in the midst of all that, right? So part of the problem, trying to become part of the solution, but not really. There's a lot of things that have been said, even in recent times, because I think if we start going through every promise made that was broken, every lie, every piece of double speak, we might take a while. But I remember Moses Kuria, Trade Cabinet Secretary at the time, talking about we're working to protect local farmers. Shortly after, maize imports come in duty-free at the peak of maize harvesting season. I don't know which maize, unless it was a maize farmer abroad that was being looked out for, right? Kipchumba Murkomen, when CS for Transport, prioritizing affordable transport systems is part of our mandate. It's what we're going to do. However, road toll increases, proposals, etc., inefficiencies in the transport sectors have continued, right? Whether it's from EPRA reviewing fuel every 15th, whether it's an increase in the road toll, there's that. Interior Cabinet Secretary, former, that's Kithure Kindiki, now Deputy President, saying we will dismantle rogue police units and end extrajudicial killings. Do I need to... I feel like that's...
To expound on
that one, right? Best numbers that we've gotten, the most consistent ones, have been on about 62 actually young people killed since the June protest began, and countless more missing. There's also plenty of questions around former President Uhuru Kenyatta, who said he was committed to fighting corruption at all levels and he wanted a zero-tolerance corruption approach at the beginning of his tenure. Shortly after that, NYS, which was some of the biggest numbers we've seen, the NYS scandal. And then after that, it's another scandal, another scandal, another scandal. So basically, we've gotten so desensitized to lies that we don't even clock them. And I saw a user on X called DEX create a promise tracker so that we can be able to actually follow up, because it does get exhausting. So it starts with on the 11th of February 2025, for example, this promise was made by leader X on this. He said in 6 months, all stadiums in the country will be complete and ready for AFCON, for example. And it's a tracker of 6 months from now. When are we? Okay, is it August? Cool. 11th, okay. Where are we with the progress on Nyayo National Stadium renovation, Kasarani, every other stadium across the country, and so on and so forth. We've gotten to the point where we have to take their work of accountability onto ourselves, because the body that should be holding people accountable is in bed. Yeah, it's compromised, basically. In bed with the executive. There's just a lot of promiscuity going on there that's not good for us. But now question is, how do we, one, keep track of quote unquote what's important? Because like we've said before, mambo ni mengi. How do I make sure that political doublespeak is not just being used to bombard me and to dominate the news cycle, and keep my eye on what's important?
That's a really good question. And I think maybe it starts with priority areas. I think always bring it back to basic rights. Track those first. Right? I think we've been having really helpful conversations on this program over the last few days. We've talked about employers and employees. So that's your pay slip, that's your pocket. We've talked about health. We've talked about, I think tracking those gains within the systems and the sectors that affect us most is a good start.
Okay.
Because to your point, it's overwhelming. It doesn't discount the fact that we shouldn't keep track of the others. But where is your pain point? Every single person has a pain point.
Yeah.
And I think the imperative is to now hold accountable to where your pain point is. I think that's a good start. I don't know if you all think the same thing, because to your point, it is a lot. It's overwhelming.
Actually,
There are many things. It's keeping track of those. But I think also just going to the basics. And this is where I say it's in the software. The software of a politician is expediency. If it makes sense for me now, I will go with it now. If it doesn't make sense for me now, I will go. So the issue here is about the integrity of the people that we have in office and holding them accountable for integrity. Because the promises or doublespeak is when, for example, somebody serves as president of the Republic of Kenya for 9 years, in charge of the national budget, all of it, and in charge of just rolling out devolution of health services, and in charge of managing the devolution kitty as well as the national government kitty, and seeing how much money is going towards health, which is a basic right, and not doing much about it. Even looking back at the promises that African leaders have made previously and said, we are going to increase our health budget to this much so that we can then make sure that our health populations are living a healthy population. That person leaves office as president. USAID does the thing that USAID has been done by Donald Trump. That person appears somewhere and says, why are you complaining? You should be pushing to get your own budget. That is right there, is doublespeak.
It's doublespeak, yeah.
And yes, as much as President Uhuru Kenyatta said what he said, and it was right, yes, that we should be pushing for that, but then the question is, are you the right person to be saying this?
Right.
And
When you're in a
start by
position
saying,
to put
to do it, you
in
didn't
place
do it.
the systems that could have cushioned us from a USAID freezing fund, making us, immobile, and for lack of a better word. Yeah, so it is doublespeak, and it continues into every other leader that comes in, because
it's the integrity of it. Now we sit back and you're like, Uhuru is right. Yes, the words he has said are right. Okay.
Correct.
But the messenger, the message is correct in this particular case, but is this the right message?
How do we return integrity to this system? That is
Come in and say,
that is a legit question. Where do you begin?
The challenge for African governments is to make sure that we fund our health budgets. I served as president, and these are the challenges that we went through. We tried a little bit. I increased it from 2% to 2.5%, and these are still the challenges, and I hope that future leaders can do that. This is a wake-up call to accelerate the things that we started, that I started when I was in leadership. But saying, no, you people, you should... No.
I know we're going
We should call all those people out. We should call them out and say, you cannot say this, and yet yesterday you did the other.
So to Rigaji's point, quote unquote, when he says, for example, no parent should have to bury their child. When you were in an administration, when these things were happening, now that he's out there, given a chance, seated across from him, what do you ask? Do you tell him, were there no such things happening at the time you were in office? Did you not know? If so, that's a whole other separate issue, because that's information flow. You know, is there someone capping the information flow? What's happening there, right? And if you did know, why were you quiet then and vocal now? How do we hold those accountable? What are you willing to give us? For example, Mithika Linturi talking about his son was quite open.
Justin Muturi.
Justin Muturi talking about his son's abduction. That's something actionable. We can ask why now, but you've given us something actionable, which is that this is my testimony. I'm putting it out in the public. You as Rigi G, now that you are out of government and you can say all these things, are you giving us anything concrete to work with so that it's not just quote-unquote double speak?
I'm sorry, even Justin has not given us anything actionable. Justin has just sat down, come to the bar.
Dropped a bombshell?
He's just come to the bar, taken the stool next to us and given us rumors.
What does he
Did
need
he
to
not, record a statement?
Saying what?
What the statement that he put out was also recorded with the police, saying my son was abducted at this and this time.
Yes.
I made phone calls, nothing happened until I went back to the president and he called the NIS boss and my son was released.
So he's basically saying the government that I serve, I believe, is involved in these abductions. Okay? He's basically saying, I sat as Attorney General. Attorney General in this country, by the way, according to the Constitution, has very many jobs. One of them, including advising the government on legal matters. And the second one sits in the National Security Council, a body mandated to consume the highest, most sensitive bits of intelligence. The other members of the National Security Council, President, Deputy President, the Minister for Interior, the Minister for Defense, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Director General of NIS, the Inspector General of Police, the Attorney General, and the Chief of Defense Forces. All the security bosses sit there. They consume the highest. So if he was sitting there across the table from who he believes, you guys head the institution, police and NIS, and I'm looking at the information here and it does not correlate with what you're telling me, he didn't quit.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
He has gone to DCI, he has recorded a statement, he has come back out, he's still speaking out there and saying, why are you talking about economy and the children? Quit.
That's
the level of integrity demands that you say, you know what, I am in this pond, the water is getting muddied, and I do not
and
want
I've been
to
personally affected.
Wait, what if I want to carry out my duties as the Attorney General, irrespective of the fact that there are rogue elements, I know they love to use that words, operating in government, abducting people, etc. But I still want to carry out the job that I've been given and mandated with, which is to be the Attorney General of this country.
So you're not being effective?
How so?
Because your advice is not being taken.
Have you advised?
Your legal advice. Exactly. If you have not advised, get out. If you're advising and your advice is not being taken,
get out as
well.
Isolate and analyze. That's what they need to learn to do. Step out, analyze, give. The other thing with doublespeak, and I know there's a upsound soon, but before we get there, is I often get concerned about how you talk about all these things. We're restoring faith and credibility in our health system. We are building roads so that our children can go to school. Name me a lot of these politicians and governors, etc., who use the very services that they roll out. We see them going to have children in the US, but there's hospitals here. We see them using a chopper because you don't have faith. It reminds me of this former president of Namibia, Sam Nujoma. I don't know too much else about him other than the fact that he was always treated in the hospitals in his country. And when he was asked, he said, I need to test what I'm talking about. He died this year, 2025.
Yep.
He's an example of somebody who said, if it's not working, I need to see it up front. So I'm going to be admitted here. I'm going to get treated here in my country. That also means you're restoring dignity and integrity to the system. And if it's broken, you can see firsthand. I think one of my biggest pain points around the double speak is in all that speak, you are not upgrading or trying to enhance the services that your people need. Instead, you're circumventing, you're actually putting them in harm's way because you're not doing it professionally. And then you're not using them. You'll visit them to cut a ribbon and say it's been great, but you won't use them. So you're not interacting with your citizens
at any real level, aside from campaign time. And to your point, perhaps one of the most painful things about doublespeak for me is how quickly we forget it.
Yeah.
Because
we excuse it.
Yes, and excuse it as well. You know, when someone is on our side, quote unquote, or seemingly on our side, we forget all else. You can think from independence, you can think from 2007, 2008. Why were 2 people facing crimes against humanity charges on the ballot box in the first place? After that, 2013, right? 2017 as well. Those are questions we can ask. Why was someone who was in the previous administration, one that was largely deemed to be corrupt, inefficient, blah, 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 why was that person then voted into the presidency? Those are all questions we need to ask, because it is a list of doublespeak. And why is our memory so short? Why
So
are
we partly did
goldfish?
this.
We did, honestly. I think sometimes you have to call yourself for a small meeting, the way you like to say, Janet, and just be like, I am part of the problem, right? Why is it that when someone tells me what I want to hear, which is, I'm a hustler like you, which is, we're all in this together, we're against them, and na 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 na, and it's like, who was that person yesterday? That should inform you. What did they do for you yesterday? What did they not do for you yesterday? What were they involved in? Who are they partnered with? Were they in bed with the same people they are now? Are they pretending to be enemies for political expedience?
And have they shown remorse? I know Rigathi has, on occasion, said, yes, I should have known.
They can act.
But I think, you know, I think we're talking about fixing the nation. We're going to have to address how we approach and respond and enable doublespeak. We need to call it out diligently, consistently, in the face of the people carrying out the doublespeak, and then keep a pulse on why things keep changing, and then think through how that trickles down to our everyday lives, because it does.
Yeah, you know, we want to hear what your perspectives are on this particular issue, because, I mean, from where I personally am coming from is we, the people, are the ones who are enabling this doublespeak, this bad manners of our politics. Maybe that's what our politics is. But should our politics be that? Should our politics be where we just sit back and accept that, you know, today you speak like that, you are on the other side, so anything that you say, I disagree with. Tomorrow, when you come to my side, anything that you say passes. Marsh Selector is saying this on Facebook. In my own opinion, I feel our political class obetusoma sana, we as the people of Kenya. Like, they know what we want to hear as a people, and there's a big percentage of people in Kenya who cannot read between the lines. Yeah? This is what Marsh is saying. On YouTube, we also have comments, and you know, this is what they're saying on YouTube as well, that at least for now, Rigathi is speaking our language. For now, what Rigathi is saying, it's making a lot of sense. For now, what our political leaders are saying is making a lot of sense. We agree with it. We follow it. Willie Mayoti says, Mayoli, we as the people, we like it when Gachagua is bitter. He's an added advantage to the fight against poor governance. Remember, he's supporting us. We won't support him later. Acha tumtumie saizi.
But hatuwatumiangi, that's my issue. I've always, ni ukweli, think about when you're at the ballot, it's you, literally. It's a secret ballot for a reason. It's just you. So a lot of people will say, you know what, we're not at a place economically where you can tell people turn down money from so-and-so. You're 50 bob, you're miambili, whatever they're giving you, right? But nothing stops you from taking 50 bob and still going and making a different decision. It happens all the time, but not here as often as we'd like.
Yep.
So if it's come about natumia, basi tuwatumia, let's be actual about it. If you want to play the game, then play the game. But what we say is, oh, we're using this person to get, but no.
You're playing into the game. Latiff, you've been told, kindly invite him for the show and ask him all those questions.
Rigathi. Yes, he's got an open invitation. And to be fair to him, in the Sunday interview, he said, you know what, I have, realized where I went wrong, and I have sought forgiveness from the elders, and I've said, I'm the one who came and campaigned for this and the way to go, and this was wrong of me, this and the other. But I don't think that's accountability now. And I think we need to get to a level where we raise the bar so high that you get into office, something happens when you're in office, you take responsibility. If it happens when you're in office, it doesn't matter whether it is because of your direct error of omission or commission. You take responsibility. What do we see in those other countries? We see in those other countries that have elevated levels of integrity, where something happens and someone says, it happens on my watch, I am sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to step aside. It happens on my watch, I have been called out, I've been caught out, I need to step aside. For now, this raises integrity issues on my part, questions on my part. I step aside. we continue excusing this, then it becomes normal. It becomes normal and okay for somebody to stand up in a political rally and use the words that we've been seeing our politicians using.
Right.
Because there is nothing called accountability. There is nothing that's going to happen to him. We actually sit back and cheer because this time he's on our side and he's talking about those other guys. Choma, Finya.
But
in lieu of accountability from them, how do we then hold them accountable when it's not always an elected position and sometimes you're too far from the ballot, too many years to go, you know. We don't have an independent electoral boundaries commission that's fully constituted, so you can't even talk about, let's get this person out of office, right? How do we hold them accountable?
It starts by calling out.
Miss me with that. That's what it starts
That's what we're doing. Miss me with that is just calling out.
Right.
Call out the bad manners.
Okay.
All right? If somebody is misbehaving on the road, people usually say, hey, boss, nini unaangusha hapo hivyo? Chukua. Just that.
Yeah.
Say, miss me with that. You're coming and you're speaking today and this is what you were doing yesterday.
Yeah.
Miss me with that.
And it's not easy. We're not here saying they should. It's us. Self-auditing is hard.
Right.
Accountability is actually hard. It's the truth. It's the truth path. So you'd rather that it's hard. Choose your hard. Choose your hard. I've said that before. Either you're accountable or you're not. Either way, there's repercussions.
Yeah.
But yes, so miss me with that.
Samuel Wanjek agrees and said there's no political goodwill and political accountability in this country. But as it has been said over and over again, leaders are a representation of the people. We need to work on our moral fabric.
Agreed.
Samuel.
Agreed.
Completely agree.
Okay.
Call yourself out as well, I think.
Oh, yes.
When you're overlapping in traffic, when you want to give that 50 bob, when you want to throw away that piece of paper, start.
All right.
I'll also start.
So tomorrow we'll be back here again, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and several conversations that we'll have. One of them is Lest We Forget. And we said every week we want to be having a Lest We Forget conversation, reminding ourselves things that have happened and calling for accountability. Tomorrow we'll be asking, these buildings that collapse, the buildings that have collapsed, whether it's residential buildings, commercial buildings, schools and institutions of learning that collapse either during construction or after construction, who's accountable for that?
Right.
And what happens with that? And we'll be raising those questions tomorrow and discussing them at great detail. We'll also be having conversations about justice and our justice system in the country and how it's working to serve us to extend access to justice. Say goodbye, Mariam.
Au revoir. See you tomorrow. Lest we forget, we've got a lot to do to fix the nation.
Right. Next, we have Your World. So Your World is starting in a few moments. So make sure that you look out for that. Mariam, Eric, see you in a short while after we wind up and see you tomorrow. And to all of you as well, thank you so much for walking this journey with us. Have a great day and let's keep the conversation going.